Evening, everybody. This is June 8th, 2021, and this is the Village of North Bennington's Board of Trustees meeting. I am at the village offices at the depot, but we are officially holding this meeting by virtual platform, the Zoom platform, in accordance with H681, Section 6. And any participant may use a computer or telephone to access the meeting by the link that was posted or the phone numbers. And we have another trustee member coming in now, should be. So because this is a virtual platform, I just ask that if anyone has trouble hearing or seeing anything, if you would just try multiple ways to get my attention. That way we can make sure that everybody is able to fully participate in the meeting. So if you want to go ahead and unmute and just comment, that's fine. But if it doesn't seem like people are hearing you, then just either wave your hand, or you could also post something in the chat and I can kind of monitor that at the same time as well to see if anybody has any comments. But we don't have any members of the public, so I think most of us, well, all of us are very familiar with this platform at this point, so we'll just go ahead with our regular business at this time. So have the trustees had the opportunity to review the minutes from May 11th, 2021?
Yes.
And are there any questions or comments or revisions for those minutes?
I guess, actually, I think I do have one question. Regarding the Breckenridge for the 18th. I believe we did approve them using the park. I think in the minutes it said we hadn't approved yet. I think we approved the event and we just wanted to clarify some questions. Is that correct or not? Because it was my understanding that we.
Yes, because you did, because then remember there was some discussion about.
If we haven't approved, then we should make a decision tonight. But I don't, and it looks like they've cleaned up most of the concerns we had. They've addressed and are taken care of. So
my understanding, and I guess why I put that there, is you were reluctant to approve it until you had some more information. But
why don't we can just bring it up under old business then, and then just to cover ourselves, if there aren't any issues, we can approve tonight, or to approve tonight, if that's, or not approve. But we can bring that up. I just couldn't remember when I read it. I just couldn't remember if we had approved and just had them clarify, or we did not approve.
Well, there was also reluctance to approve the number of tables that they were proposing to bring in. And I think someone had made the suggestion just to bring in either 1 or 2 tables, because I think someone in the community was going to sponsor some if other people sponsored others, and it would have been a total of 6, which may have been too many. And I believe the suggestion back to them was have that donor sponsor 1 or 2 and leave it at that.
Well, just as a point of clarification, I think my memory is sort of similar to Mark's. The meeting is posted to YouTube, so we could go back and look if we really needed to, but I don't think we really do, because the bigger point is that I don't think that this requires a motion or a formal motion or approval of the board, just because it is a use of the park, which Mark grants use of the park all the time. This just came to the board because it was a little bit bigger in scope. And I think that the trustees, we definitely did, as Lori mentioned in the minutes, I think we definitely did have some questions about how far this was going to go. But I think the basic idea of them using the park, we were absolutely fine with. It was just, how big is this going to get and how far up the road are people going to be parking and where are they going to be parking and all that. And so I think that as long as, Mark, is there an intention that they would email you or be communicating with you as the event gets closer?
Yeah, I've been going back and forth with them just on some of the questions they've had, and I
Great.
think I think I forwarded all those emails to you,
Yep, I
you
got,
all with some of the questions. And just to clarify, I actually, I never grant permission without bringing it to the board. So even no matter how big or small, like for instance, the wiffle ball, when they asked, what I do is I give them a feeling of my opinion, and then I always come to the board, whether it's one person that wants to use it or 50. So just to clear, I don't make those assumptions on my own.
okay, all right. Well, that may be something for us to consider, just because it's, as far as like, I think the board is in charge of making a policy about how parks should be used. But then really, I mean, it's really an administrative issue that if people want to use the park, that it shouldn't take a month for them to, come to a board meeting and if it's a major event like this, then that's fine. They can plan ahead and they can make sure that we're aware of it and that there's no conflicts and all that. But if we have policies in place that say, like we do, that there's no, for-profit vending, and that it's not, you're not going to use public lands for a private gain, then it shouldn't really, I guess like with VAE, I think I don't know. Okay. I guess I think everybody's on the same page here.
Yeah. If
Welcome.
there's nothing else, I will make a motion to approve the minutes then.
One other comment, when we spoke to the skateboard guy.
Yeah.
From Arson Warehouse in Manchester. I think the guy's name is Bill Strecker. Not Streeter.
Oh.
I-
Under new business there.
Yeah,
It's STRECKER.
Strecker.
Yep, that's mine.
I think that's true. Does that sound right to y'all?
Yep.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's who it was.
Okay.
Minor.
Any
I'll
other?
second the motion.
Okay. Any further discussion? Motion's been made and seconded. Is there any objection to that motion passing? I can see all trustees. There's no objection, and so that motion carries unanimously. The minutes have been approved. Let's move on to paying our bills. Mary has provided us all with PDFs this month, which is easier for me at least. So I can go ahead and share my screen, which you should be able to see, although maybe it's small. It's just very small.
Blurry.
Is that better?
Yep.
Okay. So I guess just since it's up already, actually, no, let's go the order we usually go. Let's do the payroll. So the payroll warrant is in the amount of $9,402.49. Are there any questions?
Make a motion to approve.
Motion's been made. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Trustee Boudreau. Let me make sure I can see everybody. Is there any objection to the motion? Seeing none, that motion carries unanimously. I will switch, hopefully, to. Are you seeing the second warrant now?
Yep.
Okay. And any questions on the second warrant? I think I can make this a little bit bigger.
Nice. Perfect.
So this warrant is in the amount of $24,000 $68.63.
I think the only two questions I had, I think I figured out, but the New England Marine and Radio North are both fire department, is that correct?
Correct. They had nothing until this month under their gear replacement. And so they're getting these in timely.
And can you just remind us the Charles Schwab and the Radio North?
The Radio North is the fire department's replacement. It is Minitors. They call them Minitors. And then the other one, the first one you referenced, is the contribution, the retirement contribution made annually.
For the village employees or the fire department?
The village.
And is it, so that's listed as an expense as opposed to in payroll?
Because it is not a paycheck.
Gotcha. Okay. Just that, yep, that's great information for us to know, being that we're not accountants, so. Any other questions? Would entertain a motion to approve the warrant for June 2021 in the amount of $24,068.63.
So moved.
Been moved. Is there a second? Trustee McKinney seconded that motion. Is there any objection to the motion? Seeing no objection, that motion carries unanimously. Let's see, we typically go to citizen comments at this time. I don't believe there are any citizens here present. And so I thought that we were on to treasurer's report, but I just wanted to make sure which order we usually go in, which we'll take the treasurer's report first, and then we'll get to highway as soon as we can, Norm, and get you.
I have only a couple of things to comment on. Number one is not in order of importance. West Oil, we had a pre-buy and an annual, or excuse me, a monthly payment last year. I suspect what with COVID and offices not being as busy, we did not use the amount of fuel that we have in the last couple of years. We actually have a credit balance. And if it is okay with the trustees, it's not huge. It's a couple $100 for each of the three departments affected, fire, highway, and depot. I would like to roll that into the contract for next year. Thank you, Matt. I see a thumbs up. So our new contract price would be $2.51 a gallon versus our last year was $1.83 a gallon. And then there's also a little bit of tax that's excluded from there, but tax is not arbitrary. So if it is okay with the board, I would like to contact West Oil and ask them, tell them that we would like to continue with their annual contract. And what they will do is they will just, then they calculate the total amount, they'll deduct that credit, and then we'll make 10 payments like we did this year, or 9 payments.
Yep.
So that's would be request number one. Okay, second thing is, while you're on this, let's look at.
Mark had a question.
Oh, yes.
So they set their price already for next year?
Yes,
That's their municipal price,
that's their municipal price.
and they've already said it, okay.
Yes.
So Mary, I have a question on that one. It's
Yes.
So if we don't spend the full, is that price set aside in the budget, or is it under which expense category is that under?
That is budgeted under the depot repair and maintenance, the garage. line, the garage utilities, and also the firehouse
Okay.
part. If, much like the previous year, we actually owed a little bit more at the end. This year, we actually have a credit. Next year, if we don't use the 4,800 gallons that are projected, then we just have another credit to either be refunded or roll into the next year, should we continue with their service.
Okay, I understand. Thank you.
So they don't, Mary, they don't divide those. When we pay that, do they tell you how much is delivered to each and price it out?
I keep a spreadsheet with that. So what
do we know-
what Lori makes a monthly payment, and then what I do is I have a spreadsheet, which I did not share with you yet, but I will, that shows the percentage of the total that each of the departments used. So then I take that percentage, and then that's when Lori makes the next payment, she will apportion that, 34% here, 20% here, et cetera, to the three departments. At the end of the year, I true it up. So of the credit that's due, I know which department is owed that credit. And what I will do is just put it in an accrual for 1 year, and or a credit for 1 year, and reverse it the next year. So it'll automatically true up each department.
So we'll go to the, okay, that was kind of where I was heading. Thank
Yes.
you.
And you know what, we said it in after the first couple of deliveries, and it was pretty darn accurate.
Great, thank you.
So while you're on this page, I just sent you two versions. Let's stay with this one. This is the annual report format of where we were, and you're on the page that I was going to reference. You'll see that of the remaining budget on the highway maintenance line there, midway down this page that's showing, there's $59,000 remaining in the budget. There's also $20,000 remaining in the budget that we had rolled over from a year plus ago, thinking that there was going to be projects. So there is $70,000 worth of road repairs that can be done in this fiscal year. And I know, and 10,000 of this 59,000 is sidewalks, and I know Norm has a project ongoing on that, but not likely to be $10,000. But here again, we can, not that 3 more weeks is going to be enough to start a specific project, but I would ask the trustees to be thinking about, if there are no significant bills to come in the next 3 weeks, what specific project would be done this summer so we could roll this into the next year when we calculate what is needed to raise for taxes.
Well, I'm wondering, I mean, right off the bat, the bridge issue is something that we're.
Right. There were
obviously
two
something
projects
rather urgent.
there were two projects that were planned that I don't know whether they're going to happen.
Yeah, let's just take Mary's, let's think on that. I want to make sure that we keep to our agenda, so that if, that we can talk, if you have questions on the budget for now, but if you have suggestions for the use of the highway money, let's talk about that in the highway section, just so that we have Norm's input on that.
Yep.
I've just made a note as well, Mark, and for my suggestion, but
my purpose here was just to alert you so you can see what is left. And again, there may well be expenses to be coming in that are already underway, but if not,
right,
by the time before we get to August, there should be a plan.
Okay. Is there any other issues with the documents that you have?
Let's see, there were a couple of minor questions. I wondered if we were going to get a a bill for the remainder of the website design, because we had budgeted for that and we didn't use all the money. We used very little of that. We had also budgeted $4,000 this year to use for space for renting winter space for the highway vehicles. If we did, I don't know did we get a bill for that? Was it there? There's $4,000 in that budget.
So Aaron, could you speak to the website first?
Let me ask Courtney about that. I'm not sure. I've been in contact with Courtney, and she's got photos. I just haven't heard. I need to check in with her and see how things are going. So
it would be helpful if we could get a bill dated in June.
Okay. I will write her tonight or tomorrow.
Not to say we want somebody to make up a bill, but
no, it seems like it's time to do some work. So okay.
I would agree with that. And also, just for people's information, Bennington is revamping their website and hiring that out to a company that just did Brattleboro's website. So, I mean, if this company is just too busy or not going to proceed with our project, it would actually be a really good time to piggyback on what Bennington's doing. So.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds good. I'll check in with her and I'll let everyone know.
Also on this same page here under the highway new equipment, not for tonight's discussion, but just to think about for the next discussion is there is money left in the new equipment, the highway new equipment line. I would ask the trustees to consider paying down the truck loan with any remaining money. Again, that doesn't need to be decided until the end of this month. But in my opinion, it would be wise to use this and take $10,000 here and pay down that truck loan.
Yeah, I think we did that last year, right?
Yes.
And I think we saw the benefit of that for sure.
Yes.
I think,
And we had talked earlier in the year that if there was funds left, that we should do it again. So just for your consideration.
so being that this is the last meeting before the end of the fiscal year, is that a motion you'd like to have approved or to have?
If you feel that it's within this agenda and the trustees are comfortable doing so, it would be expeditious.
Then that seems like there's two questions for Norm at this point. So first question first, Norm, what about the rental for the space down at Water Street?
Yes, all our stuff has been in there. It's in there right now. The guy, I usually gotta call him and say, you're gonna send us a bill. So yes, it's $3,000 in the winter and $1,000 in the summer because of the heat. And
So we did not get the $1,000 bill yet, did we?
that would be for the summer. No, I haven't seen anything.
I will look for the other one and just make sure I didn't mispost it somewhere.
Okay. And what about, do you have any thoughts on paying down the truck? I think that's really more of a fiscal thing, but obviously I think the benefit that if, it helps us to keep our equipment new because it's going to be paid off sooner. So.
I mean, there's some things that we need and we usually try to save till the end of the year, but again, our auction, you just saw that there'll be a check. I mean, I don't have the figure in front of me because I'm doing this on my phone. But it's a pretty substantial buyback. I mean, one of the machines sold for $8,000 and another one for $9,000 or something. You know what I mean? So there's a pretty good pile of money coming back to it. So, I guess if that's what the board wants to do, then pay the truck down.
And when we did take that loan, we did say that any proceeds from sales that were not otherwise earmarked would pay down this loan.
Well, so I think what I would say is that if Norm has a new equipment purchase that needs to happen, then that happens. And if there's money left over, it would go to pay down the truck. But if there isn't money left over, then it wouldn't, because it wouldn't be there. So I think that it leaves you free, Norm, to get the new equipment if you need to get the equipment. But all we're saying is that if there's money left over in that category, that we would want to apply it to the truck loan payment.
Yeah, I fully understand. And like I said, there's going to be, it'll be 30 days for it to come, but there's a pretty big check on the way. And there's a couple little items that will go very soon. There'll be, the couple big ticket items that will go. So should be a substantial check coming.
So you're saying if you do have new equipment needs, you'd be able to offset them? Am I hearing you right?
Yes.
Okay.
One of the things that we're talking about, and I'm waiting on a couple quotes for, is a small, like a 300-gallon tank that goes in the back of the 1-ton truck. And that will be a spray bar to do a pre-wet on the roads. We can also do calcium chloride. The same material goes in the wintertime, and the same material goes in the summertime. They demoed it this year, for like parking lots and sidewalks and the hilly spaces like Prospect Street, Royal Street. You spray this material down, and it keeps the bind of the snow on it, and it keeps snow from sticking for a couple more hours than normal, which again, in our little department kind of buys us something. So, those are one of the things we were thinking about purchasing, but they're a little expensive, but.
Right. Very good.
Well, we always try to wait till the end of the year because in case we have an emergency, like we'll go to, am I up now or?
Yeah, is it okay if we move into highway, Mary, or did you have anything else?
I have one other very quick thing, but I can bring it up under new business, and that's to talk about solar.
Yeah, if we could we hold that one for a little bit? Let's move into our highway report at this time. So yeah, go ahead with what you were just saying, Norm.
Well, and the other thing is, our projects, the sidewalk in front of the post office is not going to be a big project by no means. Excuse me. If we decide to go forward with the sidewalk on Bank Street, which would be a big project, the problem is we can't get a contractor, anybody around. It's very hard. And the one that promised to help us in front of the post office is really squeezing us in to his schedule, doing us a pretty good favor. And then we kind of sat on that money just a smidge because of the bridge. We're waiting for that hydraulic study and the wall, and you know what I mean? That could go from 0 to wherever, so it was good to just sit on it. Now, that being said, I certainly understand what Mary's talking about, but we have that Overly Road culvert that we have a grant to replace and a 20% match. And, so those funds, we really got to get the Regional Planning Commission on board to get an engineer to get a blueprint so we can get out to bid this winter so we can do it in the spring. You know what I mean? And we're going to be spending some money pretty fast, pretty quick. Myself and Patrick spent till 2:00 today in that culvert because the beavers had plugged it all up again. And it's, we're inside and, it's deteriorating. It needs to be changed. So, we've got a couple big things that really, they're on the radar. They are, but they're coming, you know what I mean? So it's nice to have that a little bit of a cushion to be able to spend it.
Two questions, Norm. The post office, if that gets done, we've resolved how we're going to deal with those trees.
Yeah, we're going to turn them into firewood.
Well, yeah, Yeah, a little.
That's what Jeff Gray, he's already talking to somebody. The tree committee, I said I would pull them out while I'm there. You know what they do, it's kind of a touchy situation. You know, when we fix the sidewalk, we got to pour 2 panels of concrete on their property. So, you know, the postmaster, I'm waiting for him to have a conversation, and you know, so there's a little bit more to that, you know, but whatever, they're going to plant something that can live in an environment that it's going to live in.
But did they not decide maybe to do 1 tree and create a better, more open?
Yeah, I think so.
Right. Okay.
But that's, you know,
That could be more complicated just because the post office rents that from the dailies, I believe.
that's correct. And 1 panel's in there right away, so probably wouldn't be a big deal. It's
Right.
the second panel to make it, you know, you got to make it match the sidewalk. You can't bring the sidewalk up 6 inches and they have a big step up, you know.
And the other question is, what was the anticipation on Bank Street? Was it to do the sidewalk on the other side as well?
We had been talking about it for a couple of years to get
On
rid
the
of that
Doctor's
marble
side?
sidewalk and cut that bank back, because when you plow it, you're in a hole. It's like going in a ravine, and it's just horrid.
Yeah, the bank, so I can just step in here for a sec because this is an item further down, but I think it makes sense to talk about it now, is that, so banks, I've looked into the bicycle and pedestrian grant fund for the Bank Street sidewalk, and it would be a perfect project for that grant, but the deadline is passed. And even if we had met the deadline, the grants are announced in September and you wouldn't be able to go to a project until the following year anyways. And it's kind of on the edge between whether it's a small project or a large project. And I would not want this particular one to be a large project like we did on Upper Main Street, because it turned out for us. I mean, we got a massive project done, which was very expensive, but we had to pay 20% of it. So it was when we could have done the project ourselves and, you know, maybe not have been exactly the same as it is now, but, you know, spent quite a bit less money, I would think. Well, not quite a bit, but, you know, a little less anyway. But you have a lot more flexibility if it's a small scale project than you do a large scale project. That said, I've also looked at that project, and I would seriously recommend to the board that if we're doing that Bank Street, it really only makes sense to go from school all the way to Homestead Muse, because there's sidewalk that goes that whole way. It's all in terrible shape. And it really is natural that whole section would be done because it connects that whole area. There's Homestead Muse, there is Southshire School, and there's the Village School. And so it's really an important area to have a sidewalk in. And Homestead Muse has a really nice paved sidewalk that goes right out to the road, but then it kind of dies into grass essentially because the sidewalk is so deteriorated at that point. But there is existing I did check that, because if there was not sidewalk there already, then we may add cost to the project for right of way, but we will not, because it's all existing. We would just be replacing. So that all said, I think we'd have a great chance to get this grant next year, especially because we'd be one further year out from the last one that we got. But if we want to move faster and just get it done, I really think, you know, we could just budget for this project and spend less. Like, for instance, if you do the the bike ped grant, you're much more likely to get the project if you do a 6-foot sidewalk, and we could do a 4-foot sidewalk if we want, and that saves a ton of square foot money. I mean, you do sidewalks by the square foot, so that would save us quite a bit of money. And I think it's not a question of it being wheelchair accessible, because 4 feet is plenty of space for a wheelchair to go. It's just that if there happens to be two going at the same time, they want a 6-foot would like accommodate, I think, two going back and forth at the same time. But I mean,
Well, everything we pour is 5.5 feet. So 6 is not a big deal because our machine is 5 feet wide
okay,
from end to end. So, we're doing a 4-foot sidewalk, we might as well leave the mess that we have, because that's exactly what we're going to have. But you're going to drive on half of somebody's lawn and
I
tear it up.
our equipment is 5 feet, so you have to have that underneath it, or else it's going to ruin the.
5 feet is the bare minimum. We like to do 5.5.
I see what you're saying. Okay, all
So
right.
if the grant gets us a 6-footer, it's actually a lot handier.
Okay, all right. Well, that's something to think about. And the other thing that basically is routine on those grants is that Norm and I have discussed a flashing pedestrian light for Lincoln Square, the crosswalk there. And those are ones that they actually suggest to municipalities as easy grant funded project, because I mean, you basically just order it and it takes, an afternoon to install it, and they'll fund 80% of it. So it's really a good opportunity, because those things are like $10,000, because it's like 5,000 each or whatever.
A set.
Well, the ones that they were showing in the grant were more, I think they might have been a little bigger, like the one down at the Bennington College entrance. But so I guess the board would have to decide whether whether time is a factor, or maybe we could do, I mean, it's possible we could do something like we did on Houghton, where we tore up the sidewalk this year and maybe put some hard pack in or something, and then, went for the paving the next year, or possibly the year after, I guess. Just the grant, again, I don't want to like sugarcoat this, because it's going to be the same cycle next year, where if we apply before the 1st of June, we won't know until the 1st of September that we have it. And it is possible to squeeze it in doing it in October, but I'm assuming we'd be dealing with contractor issues at that point, because other people might be trying to squeeze projects in too. So I don't know.
I think, so Norm, you're saying you're having a hard time, you would probably have a hard time getting somebody to do it this year anyway, wouldn't they?
Yes. Very, very much so. I mean, we can meet with a couple and see, but that the Bank Street sidewalk, and I completely agree with John to do the whole thing. That's a pretty big undertaking.
What are your thoughts on taking out the marble this year?
Well, I think that would be a humongous, improvement. That stuff is terrible. Taking it all out and re-graveling it all would be a really good idea. And then just waiting till it froze, and maybe not plowing it, or putting up a sign sidewalk closed and leaving it for the winter. We could pick up the blade a couple inches and plow off, and then when it melts, but still put up signs that say sidewalk closed, use the other side of the street. Again, I really think that needs a concrete sidewalk to match the other side. But that's just my opinion.
Well, I think what they were recommending for that one would be that the 6-foot concrete sidewalk where it is, with a green strip, and then they said they recommend granite curb when it's that close to the center of the village. So You'd have the granite curb at the road and then the green strip and then the 6-foot sidewalk. So,
Well, I mean, that just changes a lot in price, cost, labor,
yep.
time.
Excavation, I mean, that, now you're talking about 7 feet or more that you need to, and those properties sit up high there. So I don't think there's the real estate there to do that. Which maybe makes us think back to not getting into that really expensive. You know, we talked about this before with the you know, pulling up the marble, doing the gravel, or whether or not there is a huge need for a sidewalk between the doctor's office and Church Street. There's one access, maybe two, that come off onto that. We have a very good sidewalk on the other side. We talked about not being too redundant with, you know, I agree that the Homestead line ought to at least get people to Church Street where they can cross maybe and be on the upside of, but I'm not,
There's no crosswalk there to cross.
no, I know that there is not currently. I get that. But you do want to get people from Homestead to Joe's or, right, there you go. So you got,
So,
Well, honestly, it looks like they're probably, well, the telephone poles kind of messed that up, but it's almost set up where you've already got your green space and sidewalks. So I don't think we would be potentially cutting into the lawns too much.
maybe not.
yeah, my suggestion was not to add green space, but just that there is a green space that already exists here. It would just be putting in a curb between space and the road. But I agree with Norm that does add a huge cost because you have to foot them and granite's just very expensive. But that was,
Why would we put granite there? There's not granite on the other side of the road.
yeah, great question. I mean, we could do no curb there, or we could do concrete curb, or
No, I would do a curb. I think it needs a curb, but I don't see why we would go with granite if there's a concrete curb right across the street.
yep. I think the difference is that this is a different type of sidewalk. So when you have the sidewalk that goes right up to the road, I guess there's a difference. And it actually isn't, let me try and turn around if I can. The new project is granite. So it's granite starting here, right?
Yes.
So yeah, maybe that would not be, Norm, do you have any feelings one way or the other on that? Do you think granite's just a waste of time at this far from the center of town?
No, it's not a waste of time. You got to get if you get the slip form guy that goes in and you dig it out and he pours slip forms the curb. I mean, if we're bidding this out to a construction company with enough people to handle it, then that's something can be done. You arrange it so it happens when Bennington is doing one of theirs, and you can put a curb, and you can put a curb in.
But not granite, just concrete.
No, they set it to grade and they bring this machine in and he pours a concrete curb. You got a slip form machine and just drives right down, puts a curb wherever you want it.
Yeah, that might make sense because for this section of road, I think your concern is that you don't want people, parking or having, I think this is kind of a no parking area, right? I've never seen people parking here.
Not long term.
And that would discourage it if you had a curb here of some kind. Plus, it is better for drainage, right, Norm, or no? Is it better or worse to have a curb there?
No, there's no drains on that street.
That water's still going to pool on the downside of that. And once you get up to that yellow sign up there, or
So-
a little beyond that to the church, it heads down Main Street. But
So-
otherwise, there's no drainage, it pools.
Does that make it worse then because the water can't get off
Wonder.
the road and into the grass?
No, probably not.
The other thing I'm noticing,
Because the grass is uphill. You know what I mean? It's not going down and running into it. And,
Yeah.
You know, it's
the other thing I'm noticing too is where the utility poles are, this sidewalk is gonna be, we are gonna have to go wider the other way, but by putting in a curb, that's looking like probably a 3 foot grass patch. But we can't move it closer because of where the utility poles are. Then
Well,
we're
that's
either,
not-
if we go with a 1 foot grass patch, now we're increasing that shoulder space, which will encourage people to park. See what I'm saying?
no, the curb would be against the blacktop.
Right, so we're either gonna keep, so then we're gonna have about looks like probably a 3 foot grass patch between the sidewalk and the curb. Because where the existing edge of the road is, where the grass starts, to where the sidewalk starts, right there, that looks like about 3 feet.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah, it's probably
So-
something in that neighborhood.
So we would keep a 3 foot grass patch because you can't move the sidewalk any closer because of where the utility poles are. And you don't want to move the curb closer to where the sidewalk would be, because then you would increase the shoulder and you would encourage parking, unless we want parking on that road.
Yeah, the distance between the road and the sidewalk does vary. It kind of it's narrower up toward the doctor's office and then it gets wider out here, but yeah, I agree. I think Mark, you'd keep the sidewalk straight. The curb would be right on the road and the
Bigger
grass
grass.
would change but maybe, I don't know. Is anybody really pushing I wasn't trying to say that I think we have to do a curb. If people aren't really feeling the curb, then we don't need to spend the money on that. I mean, the real problem is the sidewalk here.
How many feet do you have between that pole and the existing right of way or existing footprint of the marble sidewalk? Looks about 2.5 feet.
That varies a lot. So I think that depending on the pole, like these poles that are up closer to Dr. Wood's office, actually there isn't one here, but this,
Right
Already
there.
addressed there. I remember that project.
Norm put that in.
Yeah.
And
this little one here.
yep. So if you were to extend that width back, all the way, I still think you're cutting into,
Yeah, that's what, see, that's the part I didn't see at first, Matthew. I think you're exactly right now. Because of where everything sits in those utility poles, we would be digging into a lot of those lawns. So it may be a right of way issue.
or the point is the curb ought to be on the upside of the sidewalk because that's going to be retaining their lawn,
No, you don't put curb on the upside.
Well, I know, I'm just saying what are you gonna do, Norm? Spin
You
that
just-
around. You're making me dizzy, John, but spin that around.
You just slope it down, just like we did in front of Anita Bellins.
This way?
It's
Yeah,
Yeah,
you
that
just
doesn't look so
regrade the
bad.
lawn.
that whole thing is a hole. You're gonna pick that sidewalk's gonna come up 6
Okay.
inches.
All right, good point.
But I do know that maybe Norm could help me with this one, but there's some exception that could be made with where the telephone pole is as in terms of like you can line up your sidewalk and then have an area that bumps out where the pole is and then come back. You know what I mean? Like your 6 feet can be on the roadside here. And then when you get to the pole, it can bump out like it does here in this case. And then you can come back.
Yep.
Right, we do that. There's a lot of places in town we've done that.
Yeah.
Sounds
So-
like it might be a good idea to have a little bit of a road trip meeting and kind of walk and wrap our heads around what because it's kind of hard to tell with this.
Yeah.
But this is definitely something, if we're gonna move forward, we should kind of get a little group meeting out there and take a good look.
Okay, but it does, I mean, is it, if we decided to pull the marble this year, Norm, that's just gonna be mostly a time commitment as opposed to a money commitment, wouldn't you say? Or would it?
Yes, yes, but you got to put something back in its place, gravel or
Back.
something. But yes, that would be a very, that wouldn't be a very expensive project.
What about, and is there any way to, I know, because we're actually talking about not using curb at this point, but would there be materials that could be purchased this year for that project next year? No, not really, because it's mostly concrete, right?
Concrete, yeah.
But anyway, just trying to think how we can best use the money. But I mean, we could just roll the money over to next year's maintenance line, you know? So if we anticipate this project plus park and overlay, I mean, we know we're gonna need it, so.
Let's go with Mark's idea. My battery's at 20%.
Okay, sorry.
Go with Mark's idea and have a little field trip on site. I'll get a length and a width times, get my yardage times plus what yardage is now, and I'll get a length on what the curb would be. So we'll have at least an idea. We're talking about whether we're talking about $10,000 or we're talking about $100,000,
Nope, not.
and that changes everything. Well, if you do it really nice, like the Upper Main Street one, and you lay curb, dig it out, sidewalk, grass it back in, you know, with a contractor, I would think you'll be in the $50,000 range. You know, you get to the other end of the store, or just the other end of Church Street, you know, that corner where that little school is, people drive on that grass all the time and they ruin it, and then they create a puddle, and it creates mud, and then it creates problems. So, you know, it really would be good to go out at least 20 feet on there with curb. You know, so sometimes it's easier to dig it and have the slip form guy come in and he just puts it all in one day. But that's not a cheap process either. You know, sometimes with grant money, they want granite. That's just, you don't have a choice. But that's part of the, you know, that would be part of a grant. That would tell us that. But we can get some ideas of what it is.
I think that this project is gonna lean toward the smaller scale one, which I think we have a lot more flexibility, and we could do concrete curb if we wanted to.
Mhm.
And we don't have to pay an engineer to oversee the project. We don't have to have the samplings of the concrete. There's a lot of stuff that we don't have to pay for if we keep it small. Yeah.
So let's take a look at the site, figure it out. This is not happening this year. The minimal that will happen is maybe the removal of the marble and a replacement with a wider built up flat sure pack or gravel of some sort that he can plow. And then we approach it next year or decide whether we want to do the grant or do it on our own.
Sounds good. Any other, before we move on, did anybody else have a comment or concern? I don't want to say it's fine, because that's not my decision. I want to make sure everybody's okay with it. Okay. Norm, any other reports for highway?
No, I mean, we're started roadside mowing. Like I said, the beavers have become a real nuisance. You know we've been awarded that culvert grant. The state did up the figure to 200,000, which
Okay.
is good, but we really, that's something we really got to get on. And then you know, when we get the hydraulic study, then we got to deal with that other side.
Okay.
So-
Okay. And is there, I know that, like, for instance, I'm trying to remember the name of the road, but if you go across the Henry Bridge and then up over toward where the Dutchman or whatever it was, you know, if you go over that way, up to the gravel.
Orbed,
What's it?
Orbed Road.
Yeah. There's a culvert that goes under there that's it's kind of similarly placed. But they have the beaver.
Right. They built one after we built ours.
So
But they finally got through it. We just need time to get in there and put it back.
oh, okay. I got you. Okay. Right.
We're going to put something, and then when it gets engineered, you know, hopefully we'll have something that we can maintain a little bit handier.
Okay.
And it will be considerably bigger.
Yeah.
Do you have full authority to appropriately dispatch these beavers in the meantime?
Yes, from the game warden, yes. And any other critter that happens to get in the trap. You know,
I think,
or yeah, right. But you know what? It's not every day we can get a trapper in there.
you know,
They're not as easy to come by either. You know, nobody wants to. It's not easy. Not as easy as you think.
So Norm, I have a question that might be, I don't know. I teach beavers in kindergarten, and I've learned a lot about beavers and beaver ponds and that sort of thing. And so over the years, I've found that a lot of people are removing beavers, and there's several biologists who have beaver ponds in the Vermont state area, and they'll take your beavers and then they study them and they live in those beaver ponds, and they're, you know, everywhere. But are there just too many beavers to even think about something like that? Would it just fill up pretty quickly again once you remove them? I don't know the population of beavers and how many there are.
Neither do I, because they don't come up and say hi, but they do jump around when we're in there because they're bad. You know what I mean? If you knew of a program that they would come down and trap them and relocate them, I think there would be people that would love that, because our trapper had traps in there and people went in and set them.
So I do know of a couple programs, and the only reason why I know all about these things is because I've studied it for a number of years with my kindergartners, and I've just learned this over the years. And
Yep.
so there's a couple different places in Grafton that'll come to do that and take those.
Well,
So
if you can give me that information, I'll follow
I mean,
up.
I can, and I can and lead you on that path, but I really didn't, you know, it's like woodchucks in my yard. They just keep coming. I don't care how many of them you get rid of. And I didn't know if it was the same as with beavers, you know, if they're that populated, that's all.
Yes,
And you don't really either, so.
you know what I mean? They usually stay out of ours and they go mess with the railroad. Well, now the railroad's doing a lot of work and they probably disturb them, and now they come and bug us.
Right, okay.
You know what I mean? And that's just kind of.
Well, I have two numbers that I could give you, and I'll email those to you tomorrow, and perhaps it'll be helpful. I don't know.
Yeah, I'll call them. I mean, what's the worst thing to do? To say no?
Right. Okay.
Well,
thanks.
I know that, you know, I fish in Heron Creek there, and I have had a mother beaver with 3 babies come by me fishing there. So I think that area in back of it, there's so much habitat for them to live in that they reproduce, and they're probably just expand, you know, because it's a good area to be in. So like I said, like you're saying, Lori, I think they may just replace themselves, but
Right.
you know.
Well,
It used to be the end of that
beaver-
culvert on Overly. It used to be a 5-foot drop out of that culvert into the river. Now it's level.
Mhm.
So they're coming from both ways.
Right, yeah. Yeah, I was just gonna say a beaver can only have 2 kits at one time, so I didn't know
Oh, well,
just what the population is. So, you know, it's not like a puppy or a kitten.
Yeah.
They're smaller numbers. So anyway, I'll give you those numbers.
All right, thank you.
All righty. Thank you, Norm. I don't know of anything from, well, actually, there's no report from the DRB, but we are going to address that in just a second. Or Planning Commission, Fire Department, or Water Department, as far as I know. The other business that we have tonight is to appoint a DRB position to expire April 2023. We do have a nomination in the sense there's been a letter of intent submitted to the board that Kim Hall of Prospect Street would like to be appointed to the Development Review Board. He's checked in with both me and the chair, Jim Sullivan, and is ready and willing to serve in that position. So if there's any questions first, we can answer questions, or if somebody'd like to just make a motion to appoint.
I nominate Kim Hall to the DRB.
Thank you.
I'll second the nomination, but I do have a question. Is that board supposed to have 5 members on it? Or is it historically 4?
Supposed to be 5.
Okay, so right now we've got me, Jim, Kim, and then
Hugh Crawl.
Hugh. So Hugh is the 4th. So we still need to find another person to fill another slot, yes?
Does anybody have, oh, I have the reports.
Lori, help. Lori, help.
Mary's got hers.
Hold on, I'm looking.
Yeah, you're right. I think that maybe that was just
What I was afraid of.
because we had a vacancy, it just got.
We've had a vacancy since I've been on it. I just wasn't sure if
Yes,
that would
yes,
stand.
it still would be there.
Okay. So while we're filling the slot that Charlotte Lyons had, now we need to also find another person willing to serve.
And just for purposes of the annual report and any report that we do, we should list that as vacant as opposed to deleting it. So it shouldn't, when it's listed in the annual report, it shouldn't say the 4 that are filled. It should say the 5 and 1 should say vacant. But I'll make a note of that.
But for this evening, I suppose we can just get Kim Hall in there and then
Yep.
look for another person to serve.
Indeed.
So could we take a voice vote just because I don't have Aaron on? All those in favor? Please.
Aye.
Aye.
That was all 5. So that is unanimous, and Mr. Hall is our new Development Review Board member. Okay, the next item of business is actually I think we're good there. I know that people probably have other items to bring up, but the items listed, the bicycle and pedestrian grant application we've already discussed, and the municipal highway grant award. If I'm not mistaken, I don't know, Mary, maybe you, but I think that was what we were talking about with Overly and Park.
That was my impression of that, yes. I don't know of any other one.
I'll just quick search my email, but go ahead for anybody who wants to take the floor with other issues that.
I have old business.
Great.
Did anyone get an invite to the Google Docs thing you did? Okay. Erin's shaking her head. Yes. I don't do Google Docs, so I was struggling to know whether anyone got any of this stuff. So I sent out, edited and read through and formalized ordinances 9 to 18 technically, excluding 10 because it wasn't listed on the form that I was working on. with the assumption that we could quickly go over what they are, and they are fairly straightforward and easy to adopt, with the exception of 18, which I don't think we need to adopt, and which I believe that Bennington did repeal at some point, because that one would pertain to skateboards and roller skates. And we have a skate park in town, so I don't think that we need to have a restriction on either of these things in town. So that's ordinance 18. But just going through, the animals and noise ordinance was number 9. It does only specify dogs and cats. It doesn't pertain to other animals. And I know that historically one of our neighbors has been dealing with an issue with both chickens and now a goat, that he needs an ordinance to reference in order to talk to his neighbor about it. So I don't know if we wanted to change the animals ordinance to also include livestock. I don't know that Bennington has an issue with livestock, or has an ordinance even for livestock. But that is within the animals ordinance. They only really address dogs and cats making excessive noise. And I know a goat is recently making some excessive noise. Erin, you had something to say?
Kara, I think I got ordinance 20, but I'm just wondering if there are other documents for each other ordinance.
I sent, oh boy, I sent
'Cause
what I
know
thought.
what you might have done, if you may have just sent, if there's a folder with a bunch of ordinances in, you may have just shared
One?
like one within it. So you
Okay.
could, I can help you with that.
Okay.
Only tomorrow.
So I apparently sent you one out of the 11 that I tried to do.
Unless other people got it. I just got 20, I think.
No, that would be accurate. So yeah, so I sent you guys the wrong thing, but basically the animals ordinance talks about noise. If an animal, specifically dog or cat, is making noise for a duration of 7 minutes with no longer than 1 minute's spacing between the sounds, then it can be brought up, and there's a procedure to, report it and move through it, and the police can address that as needed. 9.1 is about kennels, and we already have, a kennel in town. But it basically just specifies that you can have no more than so many animals, specifically dogs. And if you have them, you are considered a kennel, whether you're owning those dogs or whether you're not. And that certain standards of care and cleanliness have to be maintained in order to have a kennel. Number 11 is
Sarah,
yeah.
where is the kennel that we have?
I thought we had one. Where's Greatfields? Is that not in our area?
It's not. It's in
Oh, okay.
Bennington.
Okay, my mistake.
It might
Hey,
be.
Tara.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm wrong. I got them all. And probably
did.
everyone else did too. I'm so sorry.
When
They were
did
just sent separately.
when did you send them?
Over the weekend.
Yeah, I didn't get anything.
On the 6th,
So we couldn't open those Google. I couldn't open them, and Alana did something to them, and Alana resent them, and I
Yeah.
got them from Alana.
Originally.
No, after you.
Oh, this
After
weekend.
you. Yeah, so I got them from Alana like yesterday, because
Oh, I see.
mine kept saying access denied, access denied.
Oh,
And then nothing happened. And then all of a sudden I got stuff from Alana, which was
Oh.
weird.
maybe she opened up access to them since she was the one who
Okay.
started the.
All right, maybe.
Okay,
Yeah,
because
I never got, I'm not sure if you got the wrong email. I never got anything.
I sent it to the one that popped up in my email that was Mark, but I know that you usually use Laura. So maybe I sent it to a different email that my Google Doc or Google Contacts says is you.
I just got in.
it says MAU soccer.
Yeah, that one.
Oh, that's her web?
Right.
Thank you, Aaron.
Am I? in it?
And we
You're
don't
on
have to, we don't
You're
have
on there
to,
too. It's
There it is. I do have it then.
this
I
is
actually
my
don't check
life.
it anymore.
Google Docs is my life. So
well, more power to you.
No, I
I'm a
will- you
Word
can leave that in
document.
there. Yeah, you can leave that email. I just don't check it anymore because I
That's
don't.
okay.
But I I still have the account, so I'll just make sure I check it more often.
That's all right. I can send to whatever you want. So yeah, so I went through these. I made sure that they were edited appropriately. I made sure that everything made sense where it said mall instead of mail, and things that kind of obviously when it was translated from the PDF didn't work, like VHID instead of vehicle. So
I got them. Nice.
yeah. So if you guys want to peruse them and wait until next time, I could send more. These are all really pretty straightforward. The impound and immobilization of vehicles one is basically that your car can't be parked on public land for a certain period of time, and that if it is, we can move it. Or it can be booted.
Yeah, right.
Which
So
might
one
pertain.
alternative- Yeah,
yeah.
one thing you did mention, so I think the animal is cats and dogs only. All others are considered farm animal, and that's addressed in not being allowed to have farm animals unless you have so many acres. And if you have that many acres and you can have farm animals, it's the assumption that farm animals make noises and they're allowed to. Is
Okay.
my take
So
on all that, I believe.
does that include chickens? Because I feel like chickens have become a little more urbanized or suburbanized.
They have, but only because nobody says anything about them because everyone has them. I
You
think
go back
technically-
to our charter, it speaks of fowl and beasts,
Hmm.
and you have to have a certain amount of acreage, and I believe it's an acre or more. It might even be 2 acres.
Yep.
And I think that that current interpretation is probably not inclusive enough. At the same time, if you've got 1/10 of an acre and you've got chickens in your backyard and you're next to other places, I think that's something we have to address. So I don't think it's quite as simple. I mean, yes, we need to address something beyond cats and dogs, but I also don't think that you need 2 acres necessarily to have a chicken.
Right.
So, but I think that's specifically why they don't mention any of those animals in the noise ordinance, because then you're confusing 2 different things. If you put chickens in there, and I live next to a farm that has chickens,
Right.
it says in one ordinance that you can have a noise violation with chickens, yet in another ordinance, they're allowed on so many acres, and it's basically allowed because it's a farm. So I think
Okay,
you're right.
so-
I think it would require actually come up with a completely different ordinance or enforcing the ones we have, saying that if you don't have the proper amount of property, you can't own chickens unless.
I think I have to go through the bylaws again because I don't know if the area that we're talking about is zoned for it. If we have, limiting places, I don't know how much land this person has. So I wouldn't know whether they were compliant or non-compliant. I just know that Mark, it's the same person that was complaining about chickens in the past.
Yep.
And now I guess they got a goat and the goat is noisy. So I don't know how much
I'm not really
land
sure
that,
how big that property is either.
yeah, that's the question. If it is a limit of 1 acre or 2 acres or whatever size, I don't know what the size they have and I don't know what our charter says. So I'd have to go and look at that to get into the depth of it. I know that he wanted to talk to his neighbor first and see if they could hash it out without interventions. So I'm giving him that time, but it was something that I brought the animal one front and center so that I could try and address it.
Yep.
But yeah, I think that just is going to take a little more research. Maybe that's a Chris Damon figure it out thing since he is the master of all. Is everyone okay with 9.1? So the animals, kennels, and impound and immobilization. Basically, those are all really straightforward and they comply immediately with Bennington's regulations, and that just puts us in the same line as the town of Bennington. Dead storage. Oh God, I've already forgotten what dead storage is.
Cars.
Maybe. Hold on one sec. I just got to pull it up.
Or
So in public parking lots and in public land.
Inoperable vehicles.
Yeah. abandoned things. It's not even just vehicles, it's just storing stuff on public land at all. That one was really short, that's why I've forgotten it already. Vehicles which are abandoned or stored in a public parking lot. Okay, yep, you're right. So that's really straightforward and about a page, so easy to read. Firearms discharging. When I first moved up here, I thought that there was a no hunting. Is there a no firearms in town rule or regulation?
I believe there is. I mean,
Would that also be in the bylaws?
it should be, right? You know,
Okay,
shooting a rifle in my backyard could be problematic.
right.
This
Well,
is Rob
and there are,
about that.
so this number 13 relates to that. It says that you cannot discharge a firearm within 500 yards maybe of a residential building or any other thing like that. So, you know, basically it says if someone was trying to fire anything next to your back door, it would be too close. So I think that that one does apply to us. Even though we have a no hunting rule, it also applies to just recreational firearms. And again, complies with everything that Bennington agrees with. It did have some specifications on areas that I took out because it was talking about places in Bennington. I don't know if we need to have specific places where maybe it's a little more sprawling. But I really don't think we want people practicing with their firearms on like big fields.
Places they can do that.
Yeah,
Out the backyard.
yeah. So that one's pretty straightforward. 14, public property defacement. Obviously, if someone graffitis or wrecks a tree or does any of these things that pertains to that, there's fines, there's the procedure all laid out. 15 is posters and signs. So like putting up political signs or putting up concert signs can't be displayed on public town-owned sites unless of course approved by the board. So where we have appropriate places to put up signs, that is allowable, but not, you know, painting the walls with all of those concert posters that can go out. Improper use of public way. Again, I've already forgotten what that one pertains to. 16.
You know, bowling, playing, you know, bowling down a street maybe, or, you know,
No, I think that one's drinking.
drinking.
Yeah. I think that it pertains to drinking in public. Yeah. That one's just about not drinking in public places. You can't do it unless you are at a park approved for that, and then you're also not allowed to be openly drunk or like excessively drunk.
Yeah.
So yeah, so the improper use of public way is just don't drink on the sidewalk.
Keep in
17
mind that we've already allowed various establishments to allow drinking on the sidewalk. So,
But that doesn't pertain because it is within the bounds of their own space, right? So they own that property and they have it cordoned off in one way or another. So that doesn't, if you read what the public way thing says, it doesn't say, you know, standing outside Kevin's. It says if you are strolling down the street, sucking down a bottle of wine, that you're going to get in trouble for it.
I think we're getting confused between 16 and 17, Tara, I think. So 16 is the open container, which is what you're describing there.
Oh, okay.
But 17 is for solicitation, which is panhandling essentially. So
Bad notes. Got it.
Right.
Yeah, so solicitation is number 17. That one just relates to people talking to you on the streets, trying to get you to give them money or buy stuff from them.
and that, we might want to delay that one just because that's been a recent, that one's been looked at recently by different municipalities because, you know, you do want to prevent some types of activities, but you don't want to infringe on civil liberties and freedom of speech in that area. So there, I think there's some model rules that might be more up to date than, unless Bennington just passed this one, which I'm not sure.
That, as far as I know, has been in existence for a while. There would be, an addendum like a 17.1 if they had changed anything recently. And as far as I know, there isn't.
I think this is.
But that one, solicitation mostly says that people won't feel threatened by someone approaching them on the street. And
I want to say this one did. I'm trying to remember what the context was, but I think that this ordinance was passed in 2018 in Bennington, and then this past year it was challenged because of whether confronting somebody in the context of a protest is considered to be violating this ordinance. So I'm just.
got it.
I think it may be good to have something like that, but I think it's just one that we'd want to take a closer look at than just.
That's fine. So I guess we can discuss whether 9, 9.1, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, and 16 are all appropriate for me to send on to our solicitors to formalize so that we can adopt them at the next meeting. And then there's all the formalities if it has to delay for 60 days after we adopt it until it takes effect. And if you guys want to read through them in more detail, you can.
I do, and now I can't find them again. So I had them open and they're gone. And now I guess they sent something to my Gmail account and I have to go back there and find it. But no,
It's Google Docs. Google Docs.
they're there and I will look at them because I would like to, kind of put an end to this. But I'm not willing to adopt anything tonight.
No, and we can't because it has to be formalized by
Right.
our solicitors and then we sign it and adopt it on a specific date, which would be whatever meeting we decide to adopt it. This was just getting it all out there for you guys to review, to discuss, and for anyone else in the world that wants to review or discuss them as well. Erin?
Also, sorry, if you highlight on the text that you might have a question about, or you might want to change, you can make a little comment on it. So people could also go in, if that's okay, because I don't think it changes the document. It's just sort of, if you have a feeling about changing something, you can do that and it will show you your name popping up as this suggestion. So that might be a good way for us all to look at it.
Aaron,
I think we need to have a workshop with Erin.
yeah, you're opening up all kinds of pitfalls with that editing stuff. I don't know, man. I
Well,
mean,
we all have editing rights, I think, right now.
I
So
hope not. There, look at that.
John, you can show them.
John probably has editing rights because he got it from Alana directly.
It was on, Alana had made a comment on one of these. I can't remember which.
Look at the lawyer go.
You see that Alana's made a comment on the side, but it doesn't, so you can just highlight an area that you want.
Nice.
Oh, look at that.
Let's have a workshop.
Yeah.
With
Yeah.
Aaron?
Yeah, I think with Erin, she needs to teach us how to do this stuff.
So, Tara, if you could just repeat
Uh-huh.
what you said about which ones we are reviewing to be sent to the solicitors. I would
Yes.
appreciate that.
Absolutely. So 9, 9.1, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, and 16.
So those they were discussed and will be sent to the solicitors for review, correct?
I think I will wait a few days so that everyone has a chance to read them and we can make sure there aren't any other typos that I've missed, and then they will be sent forward so that they can be formally prepared.
Pending any comments from the board in the next 72 hours.
Yeah.
So it's the top 8, right?
Yeah. The only two that we're not going to push forward are 17 and 18, 18 being skateboards and roller skates, which Bennington, I believe, repealed several years ago, and solicitation, which needs a more in-depth discussion.
Yeah, okay. And then we get into the sewer stuff, which is out.
Yeah, and I skipped the sewer too because they're a lot more complicated and I have many, many questions.
All right, great. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tara.
Welcome.
Well
Thanks,
done.
Sarah.
Any other items? I actually forgot one of the most important things I was gonna bring up, but go ahead. Anybody else have other discussion items?
Just real quick, Jonah, again, regarding the Breckenridge thing down there, just asked if we would be willing to donate to the cause. And they're putting in porta potties. He asked about leaving them there for the month. I didn't think that was a good idea because they tend to just be places where people do bad things, like vandalize and tipping them over and silly things like that. But he was wondering if we might be willing to put the $250 cost for that as a contribution. I see no problem with that, and I think it would be an appropriate use of park and rec money. And it's just a small amount, and I agree with anything that has to do with local history and
Yep.
getting kids and community together. So I would be in favor of putting park and rec money, $250 worth, to cover the cost of the porta potties. If nobody else objects, I can let him know tomorrow.
Agreed.
I don't think it needs to be specified, but yeah, that we can support this event.
Great.
$250. It doesn't, if it ends up that the porta potties are 200 and he can use the 50 somewhere else, I think.
I just want them removed in a timely manner.
Yeah, that's right. So the event, I think they would drop them off on Friday. The event is on Sunday. And I would just, when I get back to them, I'll say, no later than, if they can get them Monday, great, but Tuesday would be okay. Because the ones we've had in the past, which I explained to him, he thought, and he was trying to be nice about it, just saying that they would leave them there for the month because it's the same cost. But
Yeah.
the
Like,
ones
so
we did in
somebody
the
can
past,
go in there. I mean, I don't see the point of that.
yeah, the ones we did in the past, when it was for soccer, we actually locked them. So they
can
were
still
only
get pushed
unlocked.
over.
Yeah, they were only unlocked for when the teams were playing, and then they were locked up. And so, yeah,
Yeah.
one more thing we would have to worry about. So, yep, I will.
In and out, so to speak.
Yes.
Yep.
So I will. I'll get back to him tomorrow. And I think that was it for me.
Thanks, Mark.
Mary, did you have a question or?
I was going to ask the trustees if you were interested in having a presentation by Power Guru to talk about the options that the village might have for some solar investing, loosely using that term. There are not as many net metering options as there used to be, but there are a significant number potentially of options to invest in solar panels on other properties. Like there are several places that are putting solar all over rooftops of a building, and you can invest in a certain number of the panels and take the kilowatt hours from there. Are you interested in having a presentation as to what options there are available?
Yes,
Yes.
absolutely.
Is there a meeting you would like to do that?
The next one.
August, September, next meeting?
Yeah, the sooner the better, in my opinion.
Yep. We're still in talks with them about still putting panels on the school.
Right.
Redo the roof project, and I think keeping it fresh, if they can come back to us, if they're willing next month, if not, the following.
Okay.
Absolutely.
All right, thank you. I've started a dialogue with them, and I was gonna see if I can get some information together with what usage we have been using so that they can have an idea when they come to talk to us about what size systems, what our needs would be, excluding streetlights
Right.
at this point.
We can't do that, right? That's,
Well, I don't know whether you could or couldn't, but I think let's start with the lower
Yes.
hanging fruit.
yep.
Okay, good. I will pursue that. Thank you.
Thanks, Mary. Fantastic.
So if there's nothing else, I'm so sorry, but I've got two things that I'm glad that I remembered before we get to the end here. So one is, Lori, has there been any applications yet for the highway position?
No, there has not been any applications, or calls or emails.
Okay. So
Did
if
I-
people,
Nothing.
if any trustees have suggestions on how we could push that out more to get more responses, or if you're satisfied that we've done what we need to do and we just want to make a decision on that, because we certainly do have an applicant at this point, but I would want to make sure that we've done our due diligence in terms of getting the advertisement out there, which I think we've done some. So we've put it on Front Porch Forum. We've done the municipal listserv, so it goes out to all the other municipalities in the state.
So it's only
And-
been out for, this will be week 2. So I have it in the papers for 3 weeks, just so you know that. That's just typically how long you do it.
At significant expense, right?
It's very expensive. Yes,
Yep.
it is.
So
Is there any-
it appropriate to ask if,
Is
the current-
go ahead, go ahead.
so
Go
is
ahead,
the,
Mark.
is the current employee one of the applicants, or is that not a question I should ask?
Yeah,
Yes.
that's Patrick Reef wants the job, and I think he would take the job if offered, but we need to make sure.
Oh,
It
okay.
goes-
I don't think anybody knew that.
Oh, no, really?
Well, no,
Well,
Has he formally put in an application?
he has not formally put in an application, no.
He'll
So maybe
need
we
to-
should,
He'll need to do that. He's filling in and knows that the job is possibly his. And I think he understands that there could be other applicants. So he does need to certainly put in a formal application. And it might turn out that's the only one we have in this market. But
Okay. Is there other online places where people know that, people are looking?
So I was wondering if you wanted, somebody suggested that I put it on Facebook. Take the ad from the banner, because that's where everybody looks.
yeah,
That's the social media where people look. I'm happy to do that if you want me to, but I didn't want to proceed without.
What
I
about
think
specific websites? Like, I know, is it more like corporate jobs where people look to Indeed or Monster or stuff like that are specifically
No.
employment?
it's everything on Indeed, but I think that Bennington Blotter and Bennington Bulletin probably wouldn't be a bad place to post on Facebook, because those would be highly trafficked areas of locals that may or may not be looking for jobs.
No, that's a good idea. I think you're right. Bennington Blotter is,
or Craigslist still might. They have jobs, local. I'm just thinking, Indeed, you start paying some big money and you're really just putting it out there.
Oh, do you pay to post it on Indeed?
Oh, for sure.
But Facebook would be free, and I believe the Bennington Bulletin gets like 20,000 people traffic. So it's a fairly significant group that might get some traffic.
That's a Bennington blotter it's a
The-
Facebook.
There's two Facebook groups. There's Bennington Bulletin and Bennington Blotter, and I can't remember which one is which, but I see the same stuff on both of them. But they get a lot of heavy traffic in terms of people looking, including people looking for jobs. So that would be a fairly strong medium to get stuff out.
Great.
It's
Yeah.
probably not a very, it's not probably a hugely selective, you know, so it's not just a job site. So you might get, you know, listen, we need people to reach out, you know, whether qualified or not, to just, so we can have a pool to look at. So I think that's an okay way to go.
Is there,
And so you've reached other municipal employees through the municipal. So there's, so anybody in Shasbury, Wilmington, Pownell, who already work in the field are likely aware.
if somebody wanted to do if somebody in a position of like a lateral transfer would be aware of it, yeah.
Okay.
Should be. Yeah.
That's the most important thing, I think, is, but yes, it doesn't hurt to do the other.
Okay. Yeah, so Lori, is that something that you can post on the Facebook?
Oh, sure.
Great.
And I actually did inquire to see if it was okay if I took the ad that we placed in the banner, because it's really expensive, but I didn't know if that was like, I didn't know the legalities of that or anything.
I don't
But
know.
it's our ad
Exactly.
and we paid for that ad at like $400. So yes, I can do that. So I'm doing that. I will do that, John.
Great,
You
thank
go, girl.
I'm going.
And by the way, that porch looks beautiful.
Thank you.
You've taken the porch thing to a new level.
I have. I
mean,
have. Yes.
You've put me to shame, frankly.
Well, Matt.
Look at me in the dark here, and you've got this beautifully lit, well adorned, and look at that blue sky behind you.
I know. It's
I
just
almost think-
gorgeous with the rain dripping, and look at my flowers. Aren't
Oh
they
my
gorgeous?
Be a virtual background.
Oh yeah.
I would think it's
Real
fake.
though, isn't it, Aaron?
I don't know.
It's real.
So the one last thing is I had a really great conversation with Jeannie Jenkins and Jean Connors, who are now co-chairing, I believe, the Bennington Select Board.
The jeans.
Yes.
Yep.
And so they are very interested in making sure that there is a strong connection between Bennington and North Bennington in a lot of different ways. And we talked about different opportunities, both in recreation and highway. We only had a limited amount of time, but we tried to cover as much ground as we could. And one thing that came up is that they are actually hiring a new position in the town office. It's going to be a grant funded position, but I think it's like a 2-year thing or something, to look at, I believe it has to do with promotion. But something that I felt would be really beneficial to North Bennington would be to have somebody from North Bennington actually located in the Bennington town office. And the way that you could accomplish that would, because we don't have a village clerk that's employed at, that sits at an office during the day, like Shasbury or Pownell or something like that, or that we don't have hours that were available. But my thinking was, even, in some ways, even if it was a student position, or best case scenario, like a part-time position where we would just have somebody there And that way, we know everything that's going on in Bennington and how we fit into everything in Bennington. Plus, we have a constant presence there so that we're not forgotten about all the time in the planning and development and grants and other things that are going on in Bennington. So that was just a thought that I had. It's sort of, my thinking honestly was, well, I think we kind of saw a benefit to having Alana helping us with certain issues this spring, and that it really didn't cost that much money. And why not, if they've already got employees there, that we could sort of maybe subsidize in a way. But what it would mean is that they're in constant communication with us, and we can call them anytime we want as well. But it's a daytime thing, because what I was saying is that for us, being volunteers, meeting once a month, doing work for Lori and Mary, doing our work at night and on the weekends, it's just not, we don't have their attention really. And I think that it would really help us to coordinate things, but also get a lot more benefit from their much larger budget to have somebody actually in the office itself. So anyway, that's something that I would suggest that we think about. And it could be a benefit. I know that there's obviously, there's a financial piece to that. There may be some drawbacks to that, but I think it might work out. So I thought I'd mention it.
Worth a discussion.
Yeah. So that's something that we can continue to talk about, especially since they have, like I said, this new position coming in. All right. So if there's no questions or thoughts on that or other things, yeah, Mary?
John, you had forwarded me an email and asked me if I would, this was again, speaking of Jean Jenkins, with regards to knowing what building regulations are, energy regulations and efficiency regulations, both for commercial structures, new structures, renovations, residential. I sat in on one of the lectures. I will be getting the notes from all of that to share with you, and I will be sitting in on the residential requirements later. I can report back to the board on that, but I do think there are opportunities, speaking of perhaps coordinating with Bennington, to be aware of what construction might be going on, what renovations might be going on. And municipalities have the right or basically the only way to enforce anything is through the municipalities. Otherwise, everything is pretty much on a volunteer basis. So there might be an opportunity to do some coordination work with them. Certainly is something that the village has not done, to my knowledge. Not that we have a lot of construction going on, but it could be an opportunity.
Yeah, we just rely on the state, that the fire inspector essentially, and
the fire inspector doesn't do any of the energy requirement type things.
Anything, really.
that was part of the reason for the conversation, was because it came up that, Bennington is not going to be monitoring our construction stuff in North Bennington, because they don't, I don't know, Paul Dansereau is thinking that that's not his jurisdiction, I guess.
Mm-hmm. But it could be something that either our zoning administrator is aware of, or even the planning commissioners.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. So that's something to think on too. Right. Okay. Well, and so if anybody, I did send it in an email. Um, I'll I'll be stepping down in September. So if anybody hears of anybody that would like to come onto the board, I think there's definitely people out there in North Bennington that have a lot more talent than I do. So it'd be great if they could
Thought so too.
yeah, about it. It is really a wonderful group, and I love doing this. It just is a really, it's ending up being a really difficult conflict for me in terms of time. So uh, I view it more as a hiatus than a retirement. So